Welcome to our inaugural Best of the Cash Flow Fight Club podcast series.
Since launching in July, we had the pleasure and honor of meeting some fantastic champions in their field.
We've had so much fun with each and every episode, sharing some high-performance tips with you.
As we wind down 2023, we would like to leave a little something extra under your tree.
The gift of some of the best tips, techniques, and highlights from the show so far. So lace up those gloves and get ready for some knockout moments in our Best of the Cash Flow Fight Club podcast for 2023. Kicking off our 2023 Best of Champions Corner edition is Annie Dickerson. Annie's the co-founder of Good Egg Investments, where she and her team both invest in commercial multifamily properties as well as provide coaching to aspiring clients looking to raise capital. Annie shares some wise insights into the characteristics that drive successful clients and where she sees others struggle. Let's get in.
Any time that you spend doing something that you're not passionate about, that you know is not your calling, the longer you spend doing that, the greater your chances are of becoming extraordinarily ordinary. It takes tremendous courage to step up and say, this isn't in my wheelhouse, or this isn't what I'm meant to do. And the longer you wait, the greater your chances are of just settling in and being ordinary.
You have touched a lot of lives, and especially with Good Egg, I know you do your coaching program to help people with capital raising, starting up their own businesses. Give us a couple of characteristics where you see people really shine. And on the flip side of that, where do people with a certain mindset or set of habits struggle?
This is such a good question because now we've coached hundreds of people and this has always been on my mind. I'm like, why do some people come in and we expect them to succeed and they just get stuck in a loop? Or other people, they come in with nothing and in a short amount of time, they've built up this huge success. And we're like, how does that happen? And I think it comes down to a few key factors. One is coachability. We talked about openness earlier, and not everybody comes in as very coachable. And by that, I mean being open, being receptive, being willing to do the work that's necessary. We have some people who we're still coaching them on the same thing as a year ago. They'll come in and be like, yeah, I heard what you said last time, but I'm going to do it this way. And it's okay. They come back next time and they're like, it didn't work, but I'm going to do this other thing this time. And it's a cycle. Yeah. And so if you're investing in mentors and coaches, then you've also got to be open to their advice and their guidance. And that's a big part of Julie's and my success as well, is that with every coach that we've hired, we've always been very coachable and very open and receptive to their recommendations. And so that's one, is being coachable. Another one is accountability. And it's one thing to have a grand vision for your business. It's another thing to open up your computer at 9 a.m. in the morning and you don't have to get anything done, but having that drive, that motivation to, even when there's struggle, even when there's uncertainty, even when there's difficulty, to keep going. And I think those people, those teams that build accountability in, they see the success. On the flip side, there's one that comes to mind, which is there in our society, especially, there's such an emphasis on that sense of security and safety and making sure that you're making enough money, things like that. And that can stifle the creativity, the willingness to take risks. And I think as an entrepreneur, you've got to have a very healthy appetite for risk. And those people who are more looking for security and safety, they're held back a little bit because then they're not as open to taking the chances and taking the opportunities. They might take a little bit longer to vet out everything and until they get comfortable.
Next up, we had the pleasure of a masterclass from multifamily investor, coach, and mindset master, Khleif. Rod is such a strong force for a healthy mindset, and he's also been through lows of lows and highs of highs. He shares so many great mindset tips on how to pull yourself through hardships and failures, how to overcome fears, doubts, and limiting beliefs, and insights on the multifamily market, as well as the common characteristic he sees of successful warriors that go through his coaching program. Let's see the best of Rod Khleif.
And when you get a big head like that, God of the universe, I thought I was real estate God at that point. When that happens, God of the universe will give you a nice little smack. Well, that was 2008. I lost everything in 2008. I lost $50 million conservatively. And what I'm known for talking about on my podcast and anybody that'll listen to me long enough is really the mindset component of that. The mindset it took to have $50 million to lose in the first place. And then maybe even more important than that, how I recovered to the success that I'm blessed to have today, because it was all mindset and psychology.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people talk those platitudes of mindset being the dominant portion of success. But what did you practically do
Sure,
to
sure.
sharpen your mindset?
It's the same strategy I did when I lost it all. And frankly, and it starts, well, I'll start with this. If you come to one of my boot camps, for example, the first hour and a half is goals. We do your goals, and we call it goal setting on steroids. Because how do you get anything if you don't know what it is? You've got to create what Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, calls a burning desire. And you've got to have a burning desire to push through fear, to push through limiting beliefs, to get uncomfortable. A lot of people are in the comfort zone, and we all know nothing freaking grows there, right? And you've got to have that burning desire to push through all that. And so it starts with goals. And so back then, that's how I started. And when I lost everything, I realigned with my goals, and not just the goals. I realigned with why I wanted those goals, which is frankly even more important than the goals themselves. And so it starts with the goals. Then it's a decision. And and when I say decision, you've got to decide, hey, I'm going to go do this. But it's not dipping your toe in the water. It's not 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Like the Latin root for the word decision means to cut off. That means it's done when you make that decision. So an example of a real decision would be attacking the island in battle and burning your ships, because their ships are what you're going to take home, right? So that's a decision. And so that's the next piece. And sometimes that could be the biggest decision of your life is to decide to do something to improve your life.
Rod, do you mind talking a little bit about fear? How did you handle fear? I'm sure you were not totally immune to fear
Nope.
throughout your
Nope.
life. And how did you handle self-doubt? And
I
what advice do
absolutely.
you want to give to people that go through similar experience?
Very common. And I will tell you, if you're not having fear pop up from time to time, you're truly not trying anything. Respectfully, I love you, but it's the truth. Okay. And so, and we all have self-doubt. Now, to us achievers, we call the fear stress, but it's fear. Okay. And so, I will tell you that it ties into something I want to finish up with, which is gratitude. Okay.
Hmm.
Because it's impossible to be fearful and grateful at the same time. But I'll circle back to that in a minute. But again, what is fear? False evidence appearing real? Probably. Okay. For many people, it's F everything and run, and they don't do anything with it, right? But I like to think it's face everything and rise, because when you are fearful, I'm going to tell you in my opinion, the best thing you can do is take massive freaking action. I mean, just go do it. And action mitigates fear. And I will tell you, whenever I have stress, okay, come into my life, which is just, again, thinly veiled fear, I always, even if it's late at night, I will get up and do something, action towards that whatever is bothering me, because that mitigates it. And the bottom line is everybody feels it. The most successful people on the planet feel fear, but the most successful people push through in spite of it. The ones that never do anything get locked up and paralyzed by it. Now, fear is paralyzing, which is why your focus is so freaking important right now. Don't get sucked into the news and the politics and we live in strange times when they talk about UFOs and nobody really cares on the news, right? There's so much other crap going on. And so, don't get sucked into that fear, because that fear will paralyze you. And again, the most successful people on the planet all have fear, but they push through in spite of it. And for me, the biggest thing that helps me is just to take massive action, to look around me and be grateful for the amazing things that are in my life. And that's how I did it. I get very, very clear, especially right now with what's coming in this economic environment. I really believe commercial real estate in general is this train heading towards a brick wall. There's a lot of fear in the air right now. There's a lot of operators that got bridge debt these last couple of years that are freaking out a little bit because they've got loans. There's 1.6 trillion in debt coming due by the end of next year in commercial real estate. 1.6 trillion. Okay, half a trillion is multifamily. And so, if your debt's coming due, you have two options, right? Sell or refinance. And neither one of those look good right now. There's been a 75% year-over-year decline this first quarter in sales. And of course, we all know what's happened with the interest rates and cap rates, and rate caps are insane right now. So all of that makes it very difficult to do those two options.
One of the things I love about your story is, and something that you say quite often, I think you call them seminars, right? So it's a total reframing of failure, which I have had, in my 50 plus years of life.
We all
I've
have.
had to reframe, because I had a really strong fear of failure, and I've had to, just totally revamp my association with that word to be feedback. And
Did
as
you have,
called
but
seminar.
I thought you were going to say you had failures. Have you had some failures?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah.
and it's,
And,
it's, uh,
and,
it's a part of
and it's
life.
only a failure. It's only a failure if you don't get back up and you don't get the lesson, right?
Yeah, and
And,
that's
and
what I
here's,
love
here's,
about your story
yeah.
is that,
Oh,
like,
thank
time
you.
and time again, you have done that, right? So you've just tried things, and you learn from them, and so
Let me
I
tell you
think one of the
something. Let
things
me
that I
tell you
heard.
something funny. Let me just tell you something that I discovered a few years ago that I talk about once in a while. I have built 27 businesses. Okay.
Mm,
27. Okay. Several worth tens of millions of dollars. Most spectacular flaming seminars. Okay. We fail our way to success, right? In fact, on that topic of failure, um, I got to meet the billionaire owner of Spanx, Sarah
Sure,
Blakely,
Mike.
the
Yeah.
undergarments that hold all the stuff together, all that. And she started with $5,000, and she's in Forbes. She's worth 1.3 billion. I think I saw. In fact, I got to see them at Grant Cardone's Growth Con. Her and Jesse are just amazing human beings. That's
Yes.
her husband, Jesse Itzler.
Yeah.
But she told me at a mastermind that I saw her at, I don't know, 8, 10 years ago, that her dad used to ask her and her brother once a week, "What have you failed at this week?" And
Mhm.
I thought, what a awesome question to ask your kids so they don't fear failure. Again, don't fear failure, fear regret. When I asked you about failure, the key is, what meaning do you place on it? Okay.
Mm.
Is it a positive meaning, or so like when I talk about my failure, of losing $50 million, I, the meaning that I placed on it is I never would have met my wife. And I have a supermodel, beautiful wife who's more beautiful on the inside than the outside. We have our ups and downs, but I would never have met her if it wasn't for that. I give it all up again for her. So that's the meaning. So if you've had something negative happen to you, if you're listening, I would encourage you to look for an empowering meaning, okay? Because life is about meaning. And you can absolutely rewrite the meaning just by deciding to rewrite the meaning. I know it sounds simplistic, but it absolutely works. So,
Yes.
it's very easy when people have a failure that becomes their identity. And I'm going to tell you that, let's talk about identity for a second. There's no greater force in the human psyche than the need to remain consistent with how we identify ourselves. And anything you put the words "I am" in front of is an identity statement. And so if you look in my exercise room or my office, you'll see signs on the wall that say, "I am success. I am a business genius. I'm the best in the world at what I do. I'm an amazing husband. I am courage. I'm determination. I am health and energy." All these signs I have in my exercise room in my office, because I will yell those things at the top of my lungs. I am success. I am courage. And I want to embody that stuff. And in fact, my kids, they help me out at my live events. And that's the question they get most often. Did he really? Because I used to tell people, I used to run down the street, yell this stuff. And they're like, "Did he really do that stuff?" Like, "Yeah, he sure did." Now he's got an exercise room where they can't hear me, but I'm telling you, it works. Make fun of it at your peril, because when you affirm things like that, like if, let's say, you're in some fear and you affirm, "I am courage," you yell it and scream at the top of your lungs, it gets into the fiber of your being, and you say it enough and you believe it, and it transforms whatever part of your life you want to transform. Let me talk about limiting beliefs. So when I immigrated to this country, I got thrown into school. And I got to get behind me. I got to go off the mic for just 1 second because I want to show you something, because it's funny as hell. But I got thrown into school, and I found out what bullies were for the first time. So hang on 1 second. And then my mom, proud Dutch woman that she is, sent me to school in these wooden shoes. True story. These are the actual
No
shoes.
way.
We found them. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then sent me to school in these leather shorts the Germans wear for Oktoberfest. True story. So I got my ass kicked again. And then, there were bullies on the end of my street that would chase me home from school, and she chased him off with a fly swatter. So, next day Rod got beat up again. And And I came up with this limiting belief that I wasn't good enough.
Mm.
And I used to say to myself, how can I show them I'm good enough? Which obviously presupposed that I wasn't. And so, a lot of people have limiting beliefs like that. And if you are one of them, and you're consciously aware of it, let me give you a tip, okay? Because I used to be afraid to raise my hand in class, fear of being humiliated or embarrassed. And now I speak in front of thousands and thousands of people in flip flops and shorts. I just don't, I'm becoming much more free from the opinion of others. But here's the key. If you've got one of these limiting beliefs, like I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not analytical enough. That was another one of mine. I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough money, or I don't have enough resources. Recognize that there's a reason the acronym for belief systems is BS, because 99% of them are just that, BS. But see, we believe they're real because maybe something happened to us in our childhood that caused them, us to believe they're real. But if you consciously aware of when one of these things pops up, pull it out. Consciously is the operative word. Consciously pull it out and look at it. Look at it with your adult rational mind. Operative word, rational mind. Recognize that it's BS. And you do that enough times and it'll go away. Okay. Super important. All right. Back to peer group. When I was losing everything in 2008 and 9, I was in Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership. Okay. It's a high level, very expensive partnership. It was about 130 grand at the time. It's more than that now. And I was around people that were killing it and they were thriving in 2008, 9. And they're like, get up, you puss, 50 million, schmillion, go make something happen. Okay. Now, when the soup hits the fan, who do you want to be around, right? You want to be around people that push you like that, or people that, that are bemoaning, what's happening to them. And of course, you know the answer. And so I would encourage you, because you've heard the adage, you are the 5 people you hang around with, and it's or 3. Show me your 3 best friends. I'll show you who we are in every aspect of your business, your health, your happiness, certainly your financial success. And here's the sad reality. Most people will default to a peer group they either went to school with or they work with. And maybe those people don't have their best interests at heart. Maybe out of their fear or their limiting beliefs or their fear of losing you or fear of feeling humiliated if you succeed, they will hold you back. And sometimes it's family. So I want to tell you, love your family, but proactively choose your peers. Super important.
What do you see as traits or characteristics that separate the superstar performers to those that just kind of wash out?
It is so freaking simple, okay? It doesn't matter what their background is. It doesn't matter what their economic situation is. It doesn't even matter what their IQ is. What separates my more successful warriors with the ones that aren't as successful is massive freaking action. That's it.
Mhm.
They just go do it. There is no greater emotion that you have available to you than gratitude. It strengthens your immune system. It makes your heartbeat stronger. It lowers your blood pressure. It brings you closer to your spirituality. And it is how you manifest everything into your life. I do these most mornings. I will sit in my recliner and I'll close my eyes and I'll do gratitude for my amazing, beautiful wife, my kids, my foundation, my coaching students. I'll just do gratitude just for 2 minutes. Then I'll do gratitude for the things that I want as if I already have them. I have my vision boards there. I'll look at the stuff that I want. Sometimes I'll get emotional being grateful for things I don't even have yet. And I know I lost some of you analytical ones on that one, but this is how I had 50 million to lose and how I got it back. Okay. So ignore it at your peril is all I'll tell you, because it freaking works. But gratitude's so important.
Another incredible leader in the real estate industry is Hunter Thompson. Hunter's built a tremendous resume, as well as a highly sought-after program that trains aspiring capital raisers. From his early experience in entrepreneurship and throughout his business expansion, Hunter shares his insights for learning and growing top-notch skill sets, the benefits of developing skills instead of chasing get-rich-quick schemes, as well as his views on what produces rock star graduates from his mastermind program. Let's check out Hunter Thompson.
The way to get good at anything is to find someone that's better than you at that, pay them on the internet to give the information, and then you can shortcut your whole learning curve. And so I was able to take advantage of that arbitrage, and now I'm in part facilitating that in the world of real estate and in particular capital raising. Those opportunities come along every 10 years or so, but it's just money doesn't give you any real skills. So let's say you do spike one on Dogecoin and you get 100 million, which is like completely insane in terms of the percentages, the likelihood of that happening. Then you have 100 million, but you don't know anything about business. You don't know anything about employees. You don't know anything about inspiring other people. You don't know anything about players. You don't know anything about attracting leads, educating people, building any infrastructure. You don't know really anything. You just have 100 million bucks. And so what's going to happen if you have 100 million bucks and no skills? Not a lot. You can maybe buy some nice things. You can also spend it. You don't know how to assess risk. To get to 7 figures as an entrepreneur, you can do it if you work hard. You can. And if you have skill and you're willing to do whatever it takes, you can get to be a 7-figure entrepreneur. Very few people, don't want to come off in the wrong way, but it's way harder than most people think. But it is possible. For anyone that's thinking, I'm trying, dude, it is to get to your first 7 figures, it's just pure output and whatever it takes. But to get to 8 figures, it's a very different thing. It is inspiring other people. It is ensuring your clients have success. It is ensuring that you retain clients.
Next up in our Best of 2023 roundup is the incredible Mary Miller. Mary's transitioned and reinvented herself so many times throughout her career. She and her husband Tony have transformed the family office cleaning business, Jancoa, into an industry leader and one that intensely focuses on employee retention. Mary now serves as a coach to entrepreneurs in Dan Sullivan's Strategic Coach Program. She's also starting up an initiative known as the Dream Engineer, which aims to ignite joy and refresh the dreams of our youth that lies within all of us. She shares her early journey as an adult, how she transitioned into a businesswoman, and the myths of the corporate world. We also discuss the benefits of great coaching and how curiosity and a beginner's mind can fuel our passions. Mary also shares the Dream Engineer vision and how that came to be. Let's get into some tips with Mary Miller.
I can certainly relate to your story because I also followed what I felt was the normal American path, right? You go to school, you get a job, you climb the corporate ladder, you have a 401k, you retire with a golden watch at some point, and
check.
Yeah. And maybe what used to be pretty consistent job security just isn't really that way anymore. And actually, the more secure thing is to really take control of that through
Totally. And the COVID has made that even more real than what we had seen over the couple decades previous to, because there was lots of opportunities and people trying different things in the 80s and the 90s. But then when COVID hit, things changed in major ways. And I've always been intrigued by the world of entrepreneurism, but just total belief that entrepreneurs do. I mean, I live in the city where Procter and Gamble were 2 real people who married sisters and went into business together to make soap.
Uh-huh.
And, that was during the Depression. And a lot of people told them, don't do that. That's crazy, And Barney Kroger started grocery stores. And my grandparents met each other while working for Barney Kroger at a Kroger store in Cincinnati in the 1920s.
Wow.
So it's, I've always been intrigued by it, but did not see it. I had to be pushed. I had to be desperate enough to be willing to take that risk because there was no other options.
Yeah, a little bit our story as well. I mean, we had other options. We just got a little bit disenchanted with those options and decided to try a different path. Also, there were some just other circumstances in life that allowed the risk to become a lot more tolerable. For me, at least. I mean, I got myself boxed in at an early age, or at least what I perceived as being boxed in terms of being able to step out and do anything entrepreneurial. Bills come and you have to put food on the table every month, and it's hard to step back and do something. I think there's a lot more flexibility these days with people being able to start side hustles or.
That's true. I'm curious for you guys, what's been the biggest surprise for you when you look back to where you were and where you are now? What's one of the things that really pop out as a real surprise? And man, if you had known that, you would have done it sooner.
I think the fact that just the journey into taking control of our actions and of our lives in a way, and starting this journey together, it's been so wonderful and so rewarding that for me, I wish we started sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll caveat my answer with I'm a firm believer that I am where I am at the moment that I need to be. And so I don't look back on life with a lot of regrets or I wish I would have done this sooner or whatever, because it all leads into this moment and it has prepared me to be a better businessman in many ways. But I will say from a surprising standpoint, I think in a lot of cases, we create a lot of anxieties and fears and worst case scenarios that don't come to pass, right? So we think about, oh my gosh, if I start this and I fail, or if I start this and I go bankrupt, or all these fears that just are a natural part of our psyche that come in. And so, I think it's easy to let those prevent most of us from taking that step.
Mary, you mentioned that you joined Tony in his business. How was that experience for you? How was it working?
Oh, smooth as silk, just like being on your third marriage with 5 kids.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting. And honestly, strategic coach, we were so fortunate to have been introduced to that so early and for us to attend the workshops together, because we both are strong, rugged individualists. We had both did the best we could to get through craziness on both sides. And when we got together, we had never had a partnership that worked, personal or professional, right? So we learned a lot. Strategic coach changed the game because it changed our mindset, asked different questions, and gave us tools to help get our thinking out of our head in a way that we can look at things from a very different perspective and focus on where we wanted to go in every quarter, have that data pause, reflect over the past 90 days and plan for the next 90 days. So you've heard me say, I've been a coach for 31 years, been married 31 years. Or no, coach for 20, but in the program for 30. It would never have worked, I don't think, if we hadn't found strategic coach, because we would have kept on that, keep doing same things, expecting different results. But we start thinking of the business in such different ways, and Dan challenged us. When with Tony, I remember, and Dan loves to tease us. He loves Tony and Mary stories, but he used to say to Tony, and he would come in, he says, so have you changed anything? You still got that same problem. So which problem do you mean this time? So, Dream Engineer was developed out of horrible pain. That's the way the world works is best. When you're in enough pain, you're willing to do something different. And that's what I love about strategic coach and the people that we meet and the conversations we have is we get to have these conversations before we're in such pain.
Right.
But he and I had already been in the pain. Coach just brought it out to make us aware so then we can do something different about it.
What are some of the key takeaways for you guys in terms of having a successful partnership, but also now a successful family business?
There have been many, and strategic coach is a huge part of it. Even though it's only 4 days a year out of 365 days, it's got that strong of an impact on your thinking and the choices you make, because you're really aware, with that Covey always saying, begin with the end in mind. At strategic coach, since I started that climb, I became a ravenous reader. I just can't read enough. I've got way more books than I have time to read, and I'm donating them. After I read them, I share them with others. And I'm always open to podcasts and different leadership programs. I get involved in the community. For the first decade of working together with Tony was operations. That's his unique ability. Mine was about building up a team so that we can support and make the results happen. But as things started to grow in more capacity to build the team, I was able to get away from being in the office behind the desk and getting out and networking more. One of the things that prompted us to start the Dream Engineer is because of, again, strategic coach changed the way we thought. We didn't think like anybody else. And I had to ask different questions, and coach had trained me for that. And instead, what did we have to do to attract people to want to work for us? There was, at the time, a yellow pages where you could count all your competitors, and there was 104 cleaning companies in Cincinnati. Why Janco? Why would they choose us if they wanted to work in our industry? And then once we got them in, how can we get them to want to stay and bring people along with them? The referrals. Those two questions totally changed, and we put our employees on the same level as our customers. So the dream engineer is about getting people to dream again. My tagline is inspiring dreams to reality, because so many people have stopped dreaming because of massive disappointment, frustration, and just not seeing its worth. That the world's just got too much negativity going on right now. And I can imagine a world with when you have 40+% of the people excited about what they're doing in their future, can do a whole tsunami shift of those issues that we're dealing with today. 3 years later, they had their third child. She was promoted to HR, working with HR, and she's got their beautiful home that they've been in for a little over a year now. And it's like she said, when she wrote those things down, she never really thought that was possible. So to be in an environment where we have the opportunity to not just encourage people to dream, but give them permission to dream, and to set up an environment where that's expected, not status quo, then it becomes abundant. That's how we end up with 85% market share. In our industry, the turnover average is 400% annual.
Wow.
And that's throughout North America in our industry. And ours was 85%. Changing gears a little bit, I would love to ask you, so Mike and I took on some challenges lately, and I'm flooded with feelings of fear of failure. What if this is not going to work out? Just all kinds of doubts and fears. What kind of tips do you give to us and to the listeners that really take on new challenges and are flooded with this kind of feelings?
Give yourself permission to look at all aspects. Find a time where you can't be interrupted. It doesn't have to be hours, but find a 10, 15-minute place, a coffee shop, sit in the corner or in a quiet corner of your home and just journal on it. What's the worst that could happen if this falls apart? Because once you give yourself permission to see what's worse, well, wouldn't it be easier if I just made it work? And you just start looking at what steps you can do to move forward. Fear is a natural part of our lives as being a human being. It's going to be there. And the crazy part is when we focus on the fear, we start attracting things to come in our life. And it's almost like we make it happen.
It's very true.
So when we focus on what we want, make that happen instead. But if you deny it, it will eat you up because it becomes like a secret you're trying to keep. And secrets take up a lot of energy. And it prevents you from using that energy for something powerful, what you can get. But if we stay in that stream, just like Crush in the movie Nemo, he talks about how much easier it is to swim when you're in the stream of life. That's unique ability when you're going with the grain of how you're made to do things.
Right.
When we allow ourselves and find ways to really do what we love to do, because my unique ability, what I'm really clear on today, is to inspire people to overcome their obstacles and help reveal a vision of the future that captures their passion. And that's just not in your work, that's in your everyday life.
Right.
Wrapping up part one of the Best of Champions Corner, we get the pleasure of speaking with Maurice Philogene. Maurice is a kindred spirit in so many ways. A world traveler, investor, lifestyle designer, and coach. He's a strong believer in creating degrees of freedom in our lives so that we can manifest it in the way that we want. We discuss his early education into the awesome benefits of cash flow and real estate, his appetite for traveling, and how he created the space in his life to live on his own terms. Maurice also shares his experience with different forms of education and mentorship along his journey and how now he's giving back. Here's Maurice.
You mentioned from an early age, you got this mindset of saying yes to life and
Oh yeah.
trying to have experiences. And I'm really curious about that and how, what was the genesis of that? Was that just something inside of you? Was that something you saw modeled out of your parents, or you just lucked into having an experience and made an impression? Or what were those early days for you and how that formed?
You just nailed it. So I've always had a kind of an explorer spirit. That's just my nature. But there were two incidents that happened to me that put me on this whole entrepreneurial journey. And this is why the why of what you things is so important. The first thing
Mhm.
is my dad sent me to France for 30 days to live with an exchange student who had stayed with us the previous summer. Well, his dad, I was 15 years old at the time, so this is 1990. Think inner city Boston kid showing up in an apartment in, beautiful France. His dad proceeded to drive us around the country for 30 days in an old stick shift Range Rover. It just floored me. Like French food, French wine, French funeral, French castles, French girls, French everything. And at the time, I was just a city knucklehead, knucklehead kid. And I was having all these experiences and like visceral reactions to, oh, wait a minute, life is not Yo MTV Raps, or life is not having a beeper on my side, or life is not getting us when cell phones were starting to come out and all that type of stuff. So that was the first thing. I went through a gamut of emotions during that trip that I vividly remember. And for some reason, I wrote a journal. I don't know why. I had never done one before. I still have it. Some 30 years later, it's scanned on my computer. The second incident was when I was 21 and I picked up Personal Finance for Dummies, the book.
Mhm.
I had an interest in fixing my finances. Like I was coming out of college, I had messed up some credit stuff and everything. I found the concept of passive income, right? It's like, oh, we can make money and it be devoid of our need to physically be somewhere. Really? Well, here's how all the real estate started. My philosophy in my head was like, if I can generate passive income, then I can create some time freedom. If I can create time freedom, then I can go back to when I was 15 and have more of those experiences. That's why I went after real estate. It wasn't like I want money too, but it wasn't just related to money. It was related to how am I ever going to be able to do what I want, when I want, how I want, and not sit in an office for the rest of my life. And that's how it all started. And it's 98 countries, 300 times later, I'm still going.
That's awesome. You got into real estate also at an early age, it seems like. What was your
Yeah.
intro into
Well,
the real estate world?
same kind of thing. So when I just bought a place to live, I was aware of passive income, but the first time I bought a piece of real estate, I was just buying a condo to live in the Washington D.C. area. It happened to be in 2002, which was the beginning of the boom cycle, up to 2008. And I bought mine, and then 3 months later, the one next door, same floor plan, sold for $30,000 more. What the hell was that? And my father explained equity to me. We didn't have Google back then, so I went to the library, Fairfax County Library in Alexandria, Virginia. I grabbed all these books. I'm not kidding you. I walked in there on a Saturday at 9 a.m. I walked out at 6 p.m. and I never left to even eat. I was shocked that people had the ability to make someone's salary in a transaction. Like,
Mm.
what? This is crazy. So by the end of the year, I had bought 10 more.
Oh, wow.
That's how that all started. Now, this is back during times when there were things like no doc loans. They were
Mhm.
barely looking at your W-2 statement. Like I took advantage of all that stuff and messed up sometimes, but I had way more successes than failures. Got up to roughly 50 single family homes, but ended up in 2000. So this is 2003 to 2014. Ended up in 2014 with 18 paid off homes. And that's how
Wow.
I won my financial, because some of them appreciated, right? And then I would lump it with my paychecks and I would store until I could buy one or pay one off. I was very methodical about, it's not that I needed more, it's that I needed the cash flow. So when
Yeah.
something appreciated, like, nah, let me go pay these loans off because that means I can control my time. And that's the biggest thing in life that we all want, is the ability to control our time.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the core freedoms in life, and we
That's it.
certainly have enjoyed that later in life, but we're on the road.
Sounds like
Yeah.
we were on the similar path because Mike and I talk about it many times. We're not necessarily passionate about real estate or
Hmm.
passionate about what we do per se, but we're passionate about the lifestyle that it gives us, about the
Yes.
freedom of time, about the the freedom to travel, about all of these that really trying life on.
It's it's a tool. It's a
Yeah.
tool. And once you have enough income or passive income, virtual income, whatever, once you have enough income that your basic needs are covered, you start to realize that life was never about money in the first place.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, especially my coaching students, like, no, the purpose of life from my humble perspective is relationships and experiences. Business is just a way to execute and help people and build relationships. Money is just a byproduct of doing good for people, you know? So,
Yeah, a means to an end and
yeah,
not the ends in itself.
a career should be a purpose or purposeful. If it's your purpose, like when I became a police officer, you're good. You're doing what you love. But if it's not, then it's purposeful. Take those 2 paychecks, store them, invest in something that's going to make sense for you, whether it's a relationship, an experience, or an asset like real estate or dividend stocks or something, and build something. Use those checks purposefully. I just think people don't have that perspective because other people's version of success is, oh, I got to be the exec VP, or I got to be the CEO, or I got to be the partner, or something like that. And they focus on that.
Right.
My early mentors, honestly, books. Aisle 6 in the Fairfax County Library, God bless you, because I think I read everything in that aisle. I did move to, I started to realize the power of self-development and personal development and self-education. And in 2015, I hired a mentor at significant expense, 50 grand. I tell you, it's 50 grand. It was real estate related, helping me shift from single family to multifamily because I couldn't figure it out. Like I was having limiting beliefs related to it, et cetera, et cetera. It took me 2 years to do my first multifamily deal. And he flew down to DC from Rhode Island. He was just pissed off at me. He showed up in the city and he's like, clear your calendar for 2 days. And I did. And he pretty much challenged me. He was like, why do you think that you, young Black dude, can't do big deals like me, old chubby white guy? I mean, and the way he said it, he was being respectful, but the way he said it was challenging my notion of what I had the ability to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a mobile home park under contract 3 weeks later.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah. So it was nice to have him. I hired a coach for establishing Quattro Capital. And then, you have informal mentors along the way, but I cannot beat on the self-education, coaching, mentor drum loud enough because mentors, if it's the right one, can take you to point A to point B faster without you having to reinvent the wheel. And people will pay $100 grand for a music degree, but they won't pay 50 grand for 6 months of someone who had already built the dream that you want. It doesn't make sense.
We hope you enjoyed part 1 of the Best of 2023 Champions Corner and received some gifts of knowledge. We'll be back with part 2 and more gifts to pop under your tree this season. Until next time, keep investing in yourself to live your best life.
Merry Christmas from the Cash Flow Fight Club podcast.